Hey guys, this is the start of the 7.0 7.4 test review. I'm going to do each section as a different screencast, that way you can just view the ones you need. So this is section 1, as seen by the title. So this is just the directions here are just to factor. So in number 1, you have x squared minus 7x minus 18, and you're just writing this in factored form. Since the coefficient here of x squared is 1, I can use the x box, but it's not really needed. I just need two numbers that are going to multiply to negative 18, which is my last number there, and add to negative 7. Those two numbers, for 18, 9 times negative 2, negative 9 times 2, 6 times negative 3, negative 6 times positive 3, and then your 18 and 1. But think the first couple here, 9 plus negative 2 is positive 7. I need negative 7. So if I reverse them, the negative 9 and the positive 2 gives me the negative 7. So this is my pair. Again, because the coefficient of x squared is 1, I know the factored form is exactly those two numbers. Since my 9 was negative, I have minus 9. And since my 2 is positive, I have plus 2. And that's all we need for this page. It's just to write it in factored form. Okay. Number 2, whoops, is x squared minus 16x plus 63. Again, since the coefficient of x squared is 1, I can just pull my numbers right from here, multiply to 63, add to negative 16. So multiply to 63 right away, 9 times 7 comes to mind. So 9 times 7 is 63, 9 plus 7 is 16. I need negative 16, so we switch the signs. Negative 9 times negative 7. Negative times negative is positive, so that's still 63, but when I add it, I get the negative 16 I'm looking for. So negative 9 and negative 7 are my pair. X minus 9, x minus 7. And there's that factored form for number 2. Number 3, 7x squared plus 9x. So I look at this, and first of all, there's a number in front of my x squared. It's not just a 1. And I don't have a third term. So I'm not going to be able to factor the way I just did for numbers 1 and 2. Instead, I'm going to have to do my greatest common factor, greatest common variable. Excuse me. So greatest common factor between 7 and 9, there isn't one, or you can say it's a 1, which dividing by 1 isn't going to do much. Greatest common variable is an x. So if I divide everything by 1x, let me just erase this here, then what I end up with is my greatest common factor and variable outside my parentheses, and then what I divide. 7 divided by 1 is 7, x squared divided by x is x, 9 divided by 1 is 9, x divided by x cancels. So simplifying this down, I don't really need this 1, so this simplifies to x times 7x plus 9. And that's the factored form there. Number 4, x squared minus 64. This one you have to recognize the difference of two squares. Okay, difference of two squares. So what does that mean? Well, that means that x squared is a perfect square and negative 64 or 64 is a perfect square. Difference means I'm subtracting. So this factors into just x plus 8 and x minus 8. X because x times x is x squared, and 8 because 8 times 8 is 64. 1 plus, 1 minus, and we're good to go. So here is the answer for number 4. Number 5, 2x squared plus 17x plus 21. Now we're back to problems that look like number 1 and 2. However, because this has a coefficient of something other than 1, I can't just jump right in and start saying what multiplies to this and adds to this. Okay, so here's where I do the x box because my coefficient of x is number bigger than 1. So x box, here's my x, here's the box. 2 times 21, that's what goes up here, so it's 42. And the 17 goes right down here. In the box, let me set that up. This is my a term, so 2x squared, and my c term, 21. What goes in here and here comes from the x. So two numbers that multiply to 42 and add to 17. And go through a whole bunch here. We have 6 times 7 is 42, 21 times 2, 42, 14 times 3, 42. There might be some others, but I'm going to go with that. 6 times 7 is 42. 6 plus 7 is 13. That's not going to work. 21 plus 2 is 23. That's not going to work. But 14 plus 3 is the magical 17. So these are my numbers. Those are going here and here. 14x and 3x. And that's what goes in your box. Now we have to figure out what's on the outside. That is where the factor comes in. So greatest common factor between 14x and 21, I believe that's a 7. Greatest common factor between 2x squared and 3x, well, a 1 and an x. So now filling out the top, x times what will give me 2x squared? Well, that's a 2x. X times what will give me a 3x, that's a 3. I check. If I do to check this box here, 2x times 7 is 14x, and to check this box, 7 times 3 is 21. So my factored form, remember I take right from the outside, x plus 7, 2x plus 3. So I have x plus 7 and 2x plus 3. And there is the factored form for number 5. On to number 6, and then that'll be the end of section 1. So number 6 is something we haven't really seen too much of. It's combining greatest common factor and regular factoring. So when you look at this, the first thing you see, again, is a coefficient that is bigger than 1. And then you realize that the x term is not even x squared, it's x to the 4th. I have x to the 4th, x to the 3rd, x squared. So I definitely have some greatest common things to be taken out of here. So greatest common factor to be taken out and greatest common variable to be taken out. Greatest common factor of 28, 16, and 80 is 4. And the greatest common variable of x to the 4th, x to the 3rd, and x squared is x squared. So I'm going to start by dividing all of these by 4x squared. Remember, whatever I divided by, whatever my common factor and variable are, that's what goes on the outside of my parentheses to start. So I factor and I have 7x squared plus 4x minus 20 left after I factor. How did I get that? Well, remember, 28 divided by 4 is 7. X to the 4th divided by x squared. We subtract our exponents. That's how I get the 7x squared. 16 divided by 4 is 4. X to the 3rd divided by x squared is x. And then negative 80 divided by 4 is negative 20. And x squared divided by x squared, they cancel. Okay, so you might think that we're done here. But we're not, because in these parentheses, I can factor what's left. So now I have a regular old problem to factor, 7x squared plus 4x minus 20. Again, I have a coefficient of x squared that's bigger than 1, so I have to use the x box. So I'm going to start out with my x here. A times c, so 7 times negative 20 is negative 140, and it has to add to 4.
Let me fill in the box. The box is going to be 7x squared and negative 20 on the end. So numbers that multiply to negative 140 and add to 4. First thing that comes to mind with any number that ends in 0 is to multiply it by 10. So 10 times negative 14, that gives me negative 4. I need a positive 4, so switch the signs. Negative 10 times positive 14, and that gives me the positive 4 I'm looking for. So negative 10 and 14 are my numbers. So negative 10x and 14x, that's what goes in here. And I finish off my factoring. So factor out, greatest common factor of 10x and negative 20 is a 10. Greatest common factor of 7x squared and 14x is a 7x. 7x times x will get me the 7x squared in that first box, and 7x times 2 will get me the 14x, and let me just check this out. 10, oh, that's a negative 10 from here. I forgot that's a negative 10 there. So that means this 10 would have to be negative. So negative 10 times x is negative 10x, and negative 10 times 2 is a negative 20. See how important that check is? Without checking, I might have just got that one wrong because I wouldn't have put the negative 10. So it's a good thing we check. So, final answer. This 4x squared is still there. 4x squared. This set of parentheses now is broken into the two sets that I just got from my x box. One is 7x minus 10, and the other is x plus 2. And now this problem is completely factored. We'll see another one of those in the solve section, so we'll have to factor again and then solve it. All right, so that's the factor section. I'm going to stop here, and you can go on to section 2 if needed.